Hello, everyone. Today we're thrilled to welcome Maurice FitzGerald to our Glassix Spotlight podcast. Starting his career with a stopwatch in hand as an industrial engineer for Wrangler Jeans, Maurice's journey in customer experience has been nothing short of remarkable. Morse has been a steadfast advocate for CX, from warehouse automation at Digital Equipment Corporation to his rise through the ranks at Compaq and HP. A pivotal moment in his career occurred in 1982 while serving jeans boutiques in Paris, where he first realized the power of customer insights. Retiring from HP as the global VP of Customer Experience for their 4 billion software business, Morris is now the head of content at OCX Cognition, an AI company founded by Richard Owen, former Satmetrics CEO. His insights into CX, underpinned by a deep understanding of AI, are sure to enlighten us today. Moritz, welcome to Glassix Spotlight. We're so happy to have you with us today.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks so much for inviting me, Ran. I'm really looking forward to our conversation, and I'm looking forward to learning something from you as well.
That would be amazing, and thank you for that. Moritz, before we start today's discussion, I would love to hear from you a little bit about what you're working on today. Is there anything worth sharing with us?
Well, at the moment, and literally as we speak, I'm trying to dig back into the early days of my career and try to work out exactly how AI can be used to help manufacturers improve their business. And it's not just about the usual manufacturing task of cutting costs, but it's also working out how all the operational data manufacturers have, different sorts of manufacturers have, can help them to both grow and reduce costs without destroying things for customers. It's quite fascinating, and it's really interesting to dig into an area that I haven't explored for 35 years or so.
Oh, wow. Talking about exciting, isn't it? Well, for our listeners, today's episode called The Evolution of Customer Experience and AI, a talk with Maurice Fitzgerald. So, Maurice, I would like us to kick off today's session. And obviously, besides of welcoming to the show, I would like to hear a little bit about your beginnings in customer experience. You had an enlightening experience in Paris back in the day. Can you tell us about that and how it influenced your views on customer experience?
Yeah, it was a really, I mean, bizarre might be too strong a word for it, but it was certainly a surprising experience for me. Um, of course, I'd been living in France for just over 2 years at that point, and I'd gotten used to the French concept of questioning just about everything that's in the established order and trying new things. Um, I was the quality and engineering manager for France, the Benelux, and Italy, based just near Charles de Gaulle Airport, so north side of Paris. And we were in the process of introducing stonewashing to the market. So yeah, this is a long time ago, and it just seems strange that when you go back before 1980, no, you couldn't buy stonewashed jeans. They just didn't exist except people selling 10-year-old pairs of jeans. But as an industrial process, it wasn't there. So I decided in some flash of inspiration that it might be a good idea to talk to the main the largest boutique owners in Paris and asked them what they liked and what they didn't like, about the stonewashed stuff and about all the products that we were selling, shirts, jackets, all sorts of men's and women's clothing at the time. And so that got into my head. We had a matrix organization structure, which meant I reported through an engineering line, and quite quickly I had the corporate engineering people on the phone telling me that, hey, we already know what everybody thinks about our products. We don't need you to go and ask anybody. What they care about is the quality of the stitching. They care about whether the rivets are going to stay put in the pockets, whether the front zipper on jeans stays flat and make sure that there's no teeth visible on the jeans, that the lines down the legs of the trousers are straight, and various other things about jackets and so on. And I listened to all of that, and I was being instructed by somebody in Greensboro, North Carolina, to not do the survey. I decided I was going to do it anyway. And with sales, got just identified who were the most important people. One of the bizarre things at the time was we didn't sell to any of the large chains that you would expect, like hypermarkets and so on, which was against the law, selective distribution. We just paid the fines because that was our strategy, was to avoid all of them and to be able to have specialist clothing stores selling everything and be able to charge higher prices without worrying about competitors from the other places. Anyway, I went in, interviewed over a few days a bunch of people from these different large boutiques and even a couple of chains of boutiques. And the bottom line is that nothing on the list that that corporate engineering person gave me came up at all. The whole thing around the quality of the stitching, the rivets, the straightness of different things, it was never mentioned. Now, yes, I did not fall into one of the classical survey traps of asking very specific questions like, on a scale from 1 to 10, how do you appreciate the straight, what do you think of the straightness of these seams and these stitches? No, I just went in and I said, what do you like? What should we do better? And the top three things just had no overlap even conceptually with anything on the corporate list. And I just want to mention the top one. The top one was, if you tell us you're going to deliver on Thursday morning, you must deliver on Thursday morning, because we will have arranged for either family members or somebody from an other store to come over to open all the cartons and put the stuff on the shelves. And I said, but don't you care, for example, doesn't that mean that it's really important to you to get what you ordered? And I was really even surprised by the answer there. It said, no, we don't care about that. What matters is that the shelves should be full for the weekend. If it turns out that you've not shipped us the correct stuff and we still haven't sold it on Monday, we'll send it back to you. So at that point, Wrangler brand was number one in Europe, number one in France, number one in all the largest countries. The main competitors were, of course, Levi's, who were fairly far behind, Lois jeans, and really, there was Edwin from Japan, there was Jesus jeans from Spain with a very bizarre slogan of "Whoever loves me follows me," with a photo, I won't say much more than taken of somebody filmed from behind. And so I was totally surprised by this. The corporate engineering people were too, but they actually loved the fact that I'd done it. But the most insightful person was the regional general manager. And he said, you know what this means? This means that if we're not delivering on time, we might be losing people. Now, it's my fault with perfect hindsight. This is one of those situations where if we'd had AI back in 1982, this would have been dead easy, right? We would have understood whether, because the data that we had just said when we planned to ship and whether we shipped on time. And that was our measure of shipping accuracy. but it didn't take into account when the customer actually asked us to ship. If they said we want it then, and we said no, we're not going to ship it to you then, we're going to ship it this other time, that wasn't there. But if we had had the AI tools, we would have been able to understand immediately every time that we were going to be shipping something to somebody at a time they didn't expect or they didn't want, and either phone them and have a discussion about it so that they wouldn't have their family members or somebody coming over from another store there, so they wouldn't be tempted to say, "Oh, damn it, and let's buy more from Levi's and less from these guys who can't even deliver when we want it." Right? So, perfect opportunity for AI. Didn't do it. Um, that whole scenario went away when the people who own they went through a leverage buyout of the parent company of the Wrangler jeans, merged it with Lee, and did all sorts of strange things, which essentially destroyed the brand in Europe. But I was gone by then, so I didn't have to deal with it. Anyway, that was a profound surprise to me.
Yeah, I think that it's very interesting use case where you're actually being requested to deliver, or let's say even over deliver on time, regardless of the quality of the product. I think but that's pretty much what you get when you deal with giants like Wranglers, right? It's pretty fascinating how you manage to cope with the situation. So
Yeah,
more,
do you think that you're like, because a lot of this was happening at the time by phone with people placing their orders and things. Do you think in like your area of the massive use of AI to manage or to better understand that type of interaction, that you could work out where the interaction that you're having with the customer in the first place when they're trying to phone you in an order isn't going the way that it should go?
sure. I think it's a good point, and I'll say that AI in general needs to be elevated based on previous interactions or previous data, if you like, right? So the moment you have this data, what the AI is capable of doing in that specific scenario would be to do something that we used to call in the industry predictive analytics or predictive support, or predictive in a way that we want to know what is important to the customer, right? And if we segment that and we say, okay, well, this customer is more about the quality of the product, or this customer is more about the speed of delivery or being on time, well, we can tell that no, we're not going to provide a shitty product, sorry for the language, right? But we will provide a product that might be a standard or not in the highest quality, but we surely have to provide it on time, because we know, well, the AI knows based on previous interactions, based on analyzing keywords from previous discussions or anything like that, that this customer is all about the delivery time, right? Or this customer is all about the product, the quality of the product in that matter. So using AI will be able to kind of, if you would like to see it as that way, is to segment the type of customer based on their top business preference.
Yeah,
And if
you're making an excellent point, because that the AI gets through that level of subtlety and the sifting, the identification of which customers are in which category, where I was, if you like, even overreacting, saying, well, actually, we need to treat all of them so that that delivery thing really matters. And you're absolutely right. There's no doubt a proportion that just didn't care at all, and that had some other factor that was much more important. But my point, of course, was that what turned out to be important, to be the number one thing on the list, was something we weren't measuring at all. You know,
what I do like about your previous um, your previous point was the fact that you simply asked without, just what do you like, what do you dislike, how we can do it better, things that are more human like. I think we're very much missing that type of conversations in today's world. Yeah. So Maurice, You've seen the evolution of customer experience from its early days. What was one of the first significant applications of AI in customer experience that really changed the game for you?
Uh, that is a tough question. It involves some of the discussions of what's AI, but um,
If there is like a one thing that you feel that really changed the game from your perspective.
well, if I pick one particular thing that was a surprise to me, the and way back in 2012 or 2010ish, HP acquired a company called a UK-based company based in the wonderful city of Cambridge, called Autonomy Software, and they were an early AI software company. And one of and the I was put as the only HP person on the autonomy leadership team when the CEO of HP at the time fired the CEO and CFO of autonomy based on well substantiated suspicions of accounting fraud before we bought the company. And one fascinating thing that we did was to try and improve the knowledge that account managers had before they went to visit large customers. We called that the Autonomy Herald. And what it was just using form of AI and form of natural language processing to scrape the web, dig up stories and news items about the company so that the early in the morning the account manager would just get consult their regular copy of the that edition that we just did for not enough of the large customers, and would have the latest news about what was going on, so that they would go into the customer and would appear to be personally deeply interested in everything that was going on, which they weren't necessarily. They were just extraordinarily well prompted by the AI. They were being fed personal knowledge. And then the customers were just regularly really surprised at how well the account manager understood what was going on in the company. That I loved.
Yeah, I think it's kind of a game changing in a way. Wow, that's really a very good example, I have to say. So, Maurice, if we shift to a more recent innovation, can you recall a moment where generative AI began to significantly alter customer interactions or services? Something that really, top of mind for you?
Well, I'm trying to not talk about contact center things, and um, and clearly the thing that everybody talks about in generative AI is how great it is to improve the knowledge, the facts that a contact center person has at their disposal, whether it be somebody who's in pre-sales trying to sell something or doing some form of customer support. I think that's quite well known. The what I the example that I like at the moment is really recent, where and it's in our own OCX cognition software area, the customer AI software. What we found with some of the early customers was presented people, when you present leaders with graphs, with tables of data and graphs that are trying to interpret the trends and what's going on in all of the operational data, there is a human tendency of some of these leaders that is called confirmation bias. And they'll look down through the list, and even if the trend or the thing that they were expecting expecting to be a problem is, number 7 on the list. They'll be saying, that's there. I knew that was the problem, right? And what we've done is we've started to use generative AI to translate the graphs and the tables of data into human language, and the with the sole purpose of reducing the confirmation bias. In other words, what this table shows is that the number one grouping of operational issues that's problematic is this, and the operational trend over the last 9 months that's been going fantastically well and improving customers' likelihood to renew, it's that. And then that anchors the reader, the interpreter, into towards a far more correct interpretation of the data rather than plonking them in front of huge tables, and even if they're all prioritized, and hoping that they'll come to the correct decision. So that's my favorite current use of generative AI. Does that answer the question?
Yes, absolutely. And I love this example. And I just want to share a little bit about what we do with generative AI. So recently, what I did, I used our amazing product team here at Glassix to analyze different pain points within our customer base. So we serve over 700 companies worldwide. And the idea of this experiment was to kind of understand what is the biggest pain, or where do our chatbots fail, which is an interesting experience. So what we did is, we kind of try to. So we started with a survey. So we surveyed all the admins of the platform. So each admin has responded to the survey, almost 95% of completion rate, which is amazing. We were very happy, and then we started to gather the answers we received, and then it was kind of amazing to see the different answers we got. But about 40% of the answers we got as to where our chatbot fails is because the majority of our customers have not yet used, or let's say adopted, the generative AI chatbots. So some of them had irregular FAQ chatbots, some of them had live chat or chatbot that kind of almost immediately when the conversation become more complex handed over to a live agent chatbots, um, and so on and so forth. So there are kind of a lot of different use cases of chatbot,
Right.
but the majority that answered, within this 40% of the 700 companies we surveyed, the majority who answered this were just saying that the chatbot experience as a whole, when a customers ask a question, when they have this free text field to ask a question, and then the chatbot says something like, "Sorry, I do not understand. Could you please repeat that? Or could you please enter your email?" Or just being very robotic, or let's say even circling back to the beginning of the conversation and creating this infinite despairing loop for the customer, which, by the way, it all can happen. If a chatbot don't understand, it don't understand because it's not been
Sure.
trained properly. Then what we suggested them to do, we did a workshop, and then we implemented generative AI chatbots. And from that, I have just written, about a month ago, I've written my article discussing 14 funniest and strangest generative AI chatbot responses. And you will not believe the type of things that people are either testing the chatbot or are asking the chatbot. So, from things like, "Hey, can I order pizza to Mars?" Or, "Hey, I'm looking for a giraffe that is smaller than a penguin," or anything like that. That is very weird, strange, and funny all at the same time, right? Um,
I'm
but
ashamed to admit I haven't read it. So,
I will surely send you the link right after our conversation today. But what I'm trying to say is like, you know what we have done here is that we not just took this funny or strangest responses and put them into an article and getting very nice traffic in there, but the idea is, now that you have generative AI implemented within your chatbot, if you want to go more technical than that, we're coupling our conversational AI abilities with GPT-4 engine Your chatbot is pretty much capable to answer everything because you're using ChatGPT, or you're using GPT-4 engine for that matter, which is generative AI in different words. So if someone asks your chatbot for anything, they'll get a response, regardless if it's relevant, regardless if it's timely mannered, or regardless if it's answering their questions or not. But they will surely get an answer, and they will not have that bad chatbot experience that they used to have before. And this is a very short bite on how we use generative AI here at Glassix.
Cool.
Yeah. So, Maurice, for businesses eager to integrate AI into their CX models, what specific strategies would you recommend to make this transition as seamless and effective as possible?
Well, I think the most useful thing to do is to replace survey processes with AI. And there's, well, three main reasons. And first reason is to be able to get 100% coverage, because typical response rates that you see in consumer businesses are under 10%. In B2B, you see numbers very commonly in the sort of 12 to 15%. And you see people taking action, closing the loop with the detractors that have responded to the survey, meaning only taking action with the unhappy people that you've surveyed, and not while you discover in generic terms what makes people unhappy, you don't discover which specific ones are unhappy. And that's how customer AI types of software work, which is using the operational data to identify which of the people are unhappy. So number one is coverage. Number two is, because you're using operational data rather than CX terminology or survey stuff, you're speaking a language to the different teams in your company that they're used to hearing, meaning you're speaking using their metrics rather than vague CX terminology. And the third is, well, you're able to connect everything that you find back to those metrics. Now, the thing that, because our business is all B2B, and or B2B to C, but where we're selling to people who sell to consumers. Um, what we're I've just my train of thought just left the station without me. So what you find is that to get started with this whole AI approach, you do need a well executed overall brand level survey, or if you want to do it at the product level, that's fine, just for one BU, one product, one brand, but a well executed survey. And let's suppose that covers 15% of your customers. Then you match those results against all of the operational data that you have for those same customers. And typically, our customers tend to have 2,000 to 4,000 operational data points and trends for each customer. So you know exactly what's been taken out of Salesforce, whatever is being used for whatever data is in the implementation project management tools, the support center stuff, all of these types of things. And you're able to work out, you can call it massive multiple regression, you're an AI expert, but you understand which of those data points and trends have the strongest relationship with propensity to renew a contract, with net recurring revenue, with a net promoter score, with a CSAT score, if that's what metric you want to track. But you do that. Your training database is all the operational data for all the customers who you've surveyed. Then you know what trends and data points are important, and then you apply that AI model to the other 85% of the customers, and then you get everything that you need to know for every single one individually, with highly accurate predictions about whether they're going to renew their contracts, etc., and whether they're going to buy more. The big gap, of course, as with this type of approach, is that you don't get anything that is at the brand image level. You know, I
Right.
call it a big gap. In B2B, brand image generally doesn't matter much. That may sound odd, but it has very little impact. What we're finding is that we're getting 85 to 90% predictive accuracy just based on the operational data. Consumer businesses, it's different. I suspect, I don't know, that brand image has a higher impact. It's like, I have a Tesla. I really dislike Elon Musk. That probably will affect the next electric car I buy if I can find something that's like my car at a similar price. I'd prefer to have nothing to do with Elon Musk if I've got that opportunity. So that matters more in consumer businesses, not much in B2B. And so, well, that's basically how it works.
It's a brilliant point, and now you just made me wonder about how many brands I buy from because I really like the product rather than liking the person who made it or the owner of the company.
Right.
But
And this is where things like answers to the open questions that you would ask in a standard NPS research, where the 3-question format is what Reicheld and Markey consider to be the standard minimum, which is the likelihood to recommend question, the um, why is what they recommend as the second question. And then the third question is, what can we do better? Because one of the things they've found over the years is that if you just ask why they gave the score, you get improvement suggestions from the people who've had problems, but you don't get improvement suggestions from the people who like you, right? And we want improvement suggestions from the people who like us, because we want them to continue liking us. And what we find is that when we do ask um, what we can do better to promoters, they give more detailed answers because they like us and they want us to do better. They want to continue a relationship with us. So uh, I guess using NLP, and there are various types of software out there that are good at detecting emotion, that you would get that. I mean, this is not something that's in OCX Cognition's own software, but clearly where we can do it with other people's software quite easily, and that can give you some of the brand image uh, data that might or might not be useful, right?
yeah. Maurice, I feel like we talked a lot about the evolution of CX and AI from the early days to till present, obviously, but there is one aspect we have not yet touched during this conversation. This is the future. So, if we're looking towards the future, what type of developments in AI do you believe will have the most significant impact on customer experience?
Um, I think I'm going to concentrate my answer on B2B,
Absolutely.
and just because I'm relatively ignorant on consumer businesses, well, I'm going to take the risk of saying totally ignorant. And the in B2B, particularly in contract-based B2B, meaning where there's annuity contracts of some nature that get to be renewed, even if it's annuity supplier contracts. Very often you can have a 3-year contract to supply some product to somewhere, supply industrial flooring to some distributors or whatever it is. Um, the the non-intuitive thing, the biggest non-intuitive thing I've found in that type of business in my pre-AI years is that it's not the unhappy customers who leave. Because particularly in B2B with large customers, if a large customer isn't happy, we put a lot of resources into making them happy. But it turns out that they're that the people who are indifferent to you are the ones who are most likely to leave. Now that shouldn't be a surprise because that's the way it works with human relations as well. We all know couples who argue all the time, and suddenly you say to yourself, hey, they're arguing a lot, but hey, they've been arguing for the last 20 years and they're still together. The point is they're communicating, right? We know customers who love each other, couples who love each other, and we say, hey, they're models for all of us, they're references, and so on. But we also know couples who've fallen into the deadly zone of mutual indifference. I've been divorced once, and that was definitely the trap that I was in, where if I phrase it in a way that it was true for me personally, but it is also true in this B2B environment, it's you get home from work and say he or she isn't saying anything, so everything must be fine. And that's our tendency in with customer experience. If the customer isn't saying anything, everything must be fine. And I'm convinced that that is where AI is going to make the biggest difference to us in the world of customer experience, right? Understanding and helping leadership understand that customers who have seemed to be perfectly happy, or you think they are because they've not been saying anything, that actually their propensity to review their forecasted net recurring revenue is far worse than you expect. And
I have to
it's,
say, I have to say that I'm wowed by this because you really wowed me. But I do have one question though. But if you're saying that AI will be able to kind of eliminate this instant, right? But what if you just conduct regular conversations with your customers?
well, that you're making exactly the correct point. And the issue is that so many companies don't. Now, the reaction of SaaS software companies has been, well, they were first really to directly or indirectly understand this. In other words, to understand things like that if the onboarding process wasn't being handled correctly, that the customers wouldn't renew and they might not say anything because they weren't using the software. And that's where the customer success concept came from, right? And so customer success, especially when it's done in a way that the people aren't measured individually on sales, meaning the individuals don't have an individual sales quota attached to it. Uh, they are the ones who are going to have the ongoing
I
conversations.
don't,
It,
I
it's
don't, honestly, I don't even know what customer success role is defined as today. Are they doing sales? Are they doing customer
well,
service? They're doing
when it's
what?
badly interpreted, it's they're doing sales. What you ideally want them doing is in a B2B environment is their role is to make certain that the customer is getting the ROI they expect from the software, if it's software. Oh, I've worked with one of the world's largest commercial real estate companies as well, before my OCX cognition days. Just one workshop with them, but it was on implementing the same concept in commercial real estate, where they were getting surprised by customers who had not said anything not renewing their real estate contracts. Because why? Well, their competitor had been talking to them, It goes back to that couples thing. You're not talking to the other part, to your partner, but somebody else might be. And then one day you get home and they're gone.
Right.
And what happens, as we all know, and it's one of the things that you get out of the AI, out of Salesforce data, very often a salesperson will show up 3 months before the renewal date and discover that the customer has already signed with a competitor. Now, in the AI data, if AI analytics, it's just been so surprising how many insights, deep insights, come from Salesforce data and how few from support data. And you can work out how frequent the conversations have to be and how far before the renewal date to maximize the renewal probability, and how beyond what level of conversation for that customer you're going to be running a risk, right? So, but you're correct. But the fundamental role, going back to customer success, was indeed designed to be having these continuous conversations, uh, making sure through these conversations that customers are using software and knew what they were doing and weren't getting themselves in that all too frequent situation that I know you must know, which is where a customer says to you, the software would be so much better if only it did this. And you say, but it already does that. But the person didn't know it already did that. And that's the type of thing that customer success was set up to do. Then yes, it got off track where I think it's okay for the teams to have a collective group bonus based on renewal rates, but not individual, because there's never enough staff, and then you wind up with the same crap where they only contact the customer 3 months before the renewal date, and because they're so fixated on the individual renewals rather than the collective environment. Anyway, enough ranting about customer success.
Yeah, no, I think that this role has been dramatically shifted over and over and over again in the past 3 years in particular. Have been working in six different SaaS companies, and at every company I worked for, the role of customer success was different, slightly different sometimes even entirely different, but it was different. And I always felt like, well, these people wear so many hats. They do, and they still are. But one of the things that I couldn't really understand is that why leadership that are obviously in charge of customer success, or how customer success are going to be portrayed at your company, are making them, for example, salespeople. We already have a sales department. We don't need another one. But
Yeah,
again,
exactly. That's most likely to happen where there really aren't enough salespeople on hand to do the work competently. Meaning, you find out even through your AI uh, that to guarantee renewals, that the salesperson needs to make their first call 5 months before the renewal, another one 4 months, and then the final closing the renewal 3 months before. And you're telling that to a salesperson who's been used to only doing one call, one visit, and then the sales leader says, "But I don't have enough people to do all of that." Oh, I've got a solution. We'll give sales quotas to the customer success people, and then you're screwing up the whole thing.
I think that's a great point to wrap up on, Maurice. I want to thank you so much for joining us on the podcast today and for sharing your valuable insights on the evolving world of customer experience and AI. Anyone who's keen to get more insights on NPS survey, on AI, on customer experience, I urge you to follow Maurice on his LinkedIn. Thank you very much, Maurice.
Thank you. Thank you for the invitation. I had fun.